July 15th, 1918. It's a pretty hot day and Julie looks absolutely gorgeous in her high-waisted shorts and buttoned-up flannel shirt. Her lovely red curls have been tied up in a lazy bun behind her head, but a few wild strands managed to sneak out and are now framing her beautiful face. The sun's high, and the cicadas are singing, and the sound of Julie's heavy breath, a few steps behind me, has me snickering under my breath. I told you those things were poison, but nobody listens to me. That's why I stopped. I tell her with a bright smile as I reach the high grounds and extend my arm to help her. Julie's pretty fond of those cigarettes, but I always found myself short of breath whenever I smoked, so I quit pretty fast. She makes a grimace at me, which is only intensified by how red her cheeks have become from the effort of the hike. Fortunately, this is a pretty easy hiking site, and I wonder how she would fare in Mountain Peak. Well, probably not well. As soon as Julie is up with me, she uncaps the lid on her bottle of water and downs about half of it in a single gulp. Then, she finds what looks like a comfortable rock and sits, requesting a short break from me without a word. When she lights up her cigarette, I can't help but to roll my eyes. Everyone has a vice, and I'm glad mine isn't a cigarette. No. My weakness is of far more curious nature. You see, I'm intrigued by the strange and the occult, and I've read many times a book that told me there was something hiding in these woods. And the reason I've brought Julie with me today is not that I wanted her to exercise, or because there was a lovely sight atop of the hiking trail, like I told her. No. The reason is that I finally discovered something, and I wanted to share it with someone else. And who better than my partner in crimes and pranks than Julie to explore this with me? I wanted to go alone, but before I could even enter these grounds, something pulled on me and told me that I shouldn't go alone. It wasn't fright that prevented me from going. After all, let it be known, Dustin Fleming is not a coward. So, if it wasn't fright, what was it that stopped me from going on an adventure alone? Well, it was hard to tell. Maybe I felt like I needed to go with Julie because I knew she would be just as intrigued as me. Or, even simpler, maybe I just wanted a witness. Someone that would believe me because they saw it. And quite frankly, I'm pretty sure it's the latter because even I have a hard time believing what I found. I watch as Julie crushes the butt of her cigarette onto the rock and spit on it to make sure it's unlit. If there's anything I respect about her, is that she always takes all the necessary precautions. In all situations. It's not like she's a coward or anything. Julie has more guts than anyone I know by far, but she is also the most cautious girl I've ever seen. Spitting on her cigarettes is something she does every time she burns one in nature because she thinks she's going to set fire to the woods if she doesn't. It's actually a bit adorable. Julie asks if it was what I wanted to show her, and she points towards the horizon. There's a space between the trees which reveals a pretty okay sight. It's good, and I did tell her that I brought her to this trail because there was something she absolutely needed to see. And it wasn't wrong of her to expect it was that sight. My lips stretched in a grin, and I nod negatively. It wasn't what I wanted to show her. Gripping her wrist firmly, I asked her if she'd trust me. Her brows furrow a little, but she's quick to smile again and nod at me. Silently, I let my eyes trace a path from freckle to freckle on her cheekbone until I meet her gaze again. Her eyes scream curiosity and excitement, so I decided against making her wait any further. Leading her off the trail, I keep my hand around her wrist, my heart beating faster and faster in my chest, and I could feel every thump reverberate against my ribcage. After about 10 minutes off the trail, Julie starts to worry and asks me where we're going. And I joke and tell her not to worry, that I'm not going to kill her and dump her body in the woods. She laughs because she also has a dark sense of humor, and seconds later, I knock on a tree and show her a scratch I left there so I remember my way in and out. See? I know where we're going. I don't really need these though, but I knew you'd be scared if I didn't. Julie snorts and puts on a brave front before giving me a solid punch on the shoulder. She hits harder than she thinks, but I don't really mind. I deserve it a little after all. After a few more minutes in the deep of the forest, a strange carnival music starts to be heard around us, and Julie's eyes widened in disbelief. She asks me if it is what she thinks it is, and I cannot help my grin any longer. I told her that I couldn't believe it either the first time I found it, and that I needed her to be there to reassure myself that I wasn't going crazy. The closer we got to the fairgrounds, the louder the music. However, even as we finally reached it, it isn't as loud as it should be in the carnival. The sound is a bit distorted, probably from playing aimlessly for the past 50 years. Like an old music box that lost its synchronization, the song eerily plays, sometimes jumps and sometimes loops back a few seconds earlier. We enter the carnival through the usual metallic gates, which have now long been claimed by nature. Vines and high grass are curled and wrapped around the bars, and this time I do not feel the pull asking me to not be alone. I enter the grounds, and I feel like a child in a candy shop. I don't know where to start. Should I go with Julie to the carousel of broken horses and unicorns? Should I visit the abandoned shooting games, or should I just go to the main event and get into the tent? It seems like Julie is the one to make that decision for me as she rushes towards the carousel. This one is covered in grass, and most of the horses have lost their heads, and those who haven't are deformed, blemished toys that are rotting in the sun and have lost all of their colors. One of the unicorn's rainbow horn now looks like a bunch of pastel candy stuck together. It's even bent out of shape, probably due to the sun heating it up every summer since this place was abandoned. Julie asks me if I think it still works, and I nod negatively. Without electricity or knowledge of how these things work, I can't possibly make it work. But still, Dustin Fleming is not a quitter. I make my way to what looks like a panel, and I start touching all the buttons. Obviously, it doesn't do anything, until my eyes settle on what looks like a little box with a coin acceptor. I snort and put a penny in it. My penny slides back down below, and I raise my arm in defeat to tell Julie I can't do it. However, as soon as she tries to get off the horse, the music gets louder and the carousel starts moving. And I can't believe my eyes, and neither does Julie. Her hands instinctively wrap around the headless horse's neck, and she's giggling like a child. She does 3, 4, 5 turns before the mechanism stops, and when she gets off, she runs towards me excitedly. When she asked me how I did that, I show her a penny. I slide it in and pick it up from the bottom of the box, and then wait for the carousel to start again. But it doesn't. I try again, and it doesn't do anything. Disheartened, we make our way to the shooting stand, which is half broken and overrun by nature as well. Vines have taken a strong hold of the stand, and high grass have buried half the targets. Still, we pick up the guns from the counter, which are tied with a rope so thieves couldn't run off with them, and try to shoot a few of the visible targets. To our surprise, Julie's gun actually shoots small bullets, and she hits a few targets. The stands illuminate for a few seconds, and a mechanical voice tells her that she has won. She has won. She has won. She has won. And repeats it until the voice is so distorted we can only hear the mechanical clicking of the recording. I jokingly tell her that this place was only waiting for her to be alive, and she lightly shoved me. However, I start believing in it. And why wouldn't I? Something told me not to go alone, and everything seems to be brought back to life whenever she touches anything from the carnival. And after the carousel and the guns, I'm convinced that Julie needed to be here. And I don't yet know the reason, but one thing's for sure. She belongs here more than me. I start hearing a strange noise coming from the main tent. It's a clicking and a clacking, repeatedly, as if 100 pairs of toddlers' feet were stomping the ground. I'm intrigued, but Julie's already dragging me towards the next attraction, the strongman attraction. I pass the hand into my hair and look at the hammer, then the bar. And I wonder if this one will work, since it doesn't seem to be electrical or anything. I pick up the hammer and, proud like a rooster, I make my way in front of the strongman attraction. I give Julie a look and flex my muscles, which aren't bulging that much, and I lift the hammer. When I finally slam it down on the bell-shaped mark, the ball rises up to 75 in the scale. And I cannot hide my grin. I'm pretty sure that's a good score. And unfortunately, Julie is quick to prove me wrong when she knocks a solid 125 effortlessly. My mouth is left agape, and I feel the edge of my cheekbones tingling with shame as a cynical, evil laughter rise from the machine. Both Julie and I stare at each other in dismay, and then we look back at the strongman attraction to try and figure out where this was coming from. And a shiver runs down my spine as I hear the footsteps again, and I ask Julie if she's heard that. And I'm starting to be a bit uncomfortable, but I don't know why. She asks about the laughter, and I correct her, asking her about the footsteps. But she didn't hear that. I swallow thickly and look back to the main tent. There's a breeze shaking its cloth, and for the second time in a 5-minute span, I feel like we shouldn't be here. I want to ask Julie to go back and maybe come at another time, but she's already dragging me elsewhere, from attractions to attractions. The more we do, the worse I feel, and there's a dreadful weight settling on my chest. Something's wrong. If I thought this place was magical at first, I'm starting to feel like I read the vibe wrong. But Julie looks like she's having so much fun, and you know, Dustin Fleming is not a coward. The unsettling feeling doesn't leave me at all, and Julie's starting to become irritated with my attitude. I start to tell her that I have a headache and would like to go back home, that we could come back some other day, but she brushes me off and say that anyway, there's only one attraction left to visit. And something hateful and vile gnaws at my stomach, and I just don't recognize myself. I tried to tell Julie that we really have to go, but she's really dragging me by the arm and into the tent. And I again hear the sound of those tap-dancing little feet on the stage, but I see nothing. It's dark, it smells rank and humid, and I could feel moss beneath my feet as I stepped further into the tent. Julie curses me for not telling her about the carnival, because she would have brought a lamp if she had known. I laugh nervously and tell her that since we didn't see anything, we should just really start to go. She agrees, and I sigh in relief as loudly as I can. As we turn around to make our way to the door, we hit something hard. The door has been blocked, and the sound of the steps is back, louder than ever. What we hit started moving and circling around us like a predator trapping its prey. I hear a slithering noise, followed again by the sound of those infernal feet tapping on the ground. And there's not a light that can illuminate us on what's happening, but the creeping feeling in my stomach leaves me believing that we should definitely have left before coming here. And I get this eerie feeling that we just stepped into a monster's cave. His nest of sorts that keeps him hidden from the sun. Clicking noises fill the room, and a long trill has me standing straight, and Julie's arms find her way around mine. She clutches me tightly and tells me that we need to get out, and I can't agree more. So I turn back around and start kicking at whatever it was that's blocking our way. It feels like a shell, but it doesn't even budge beneath my feet. Am I not kicking hard enough? And I could have sworn I was kicking like my life depended on it, because it probably was. And I then realized that I'm not hearing the carnival music anymore, and that we haven't heard it since the strongman attraction. The stepping noise finally stops, and dim lighting starts to illuminate the tent. Our way out is still blocked, and Julie's pulling on my arm, quietly asking me to turn around. But I wish I hadn't. And when I did turn around, I found myself facing a semi-standing, enormous centipede, with legs like spiders and the body of a shelled caterpillar. I feel my soul disintegrate instantly, and a wet, sticky sensation flowing down the length of my legs. I dare not to watch as I humiliate myself, but I'm pretty sure Julie hasn't even noticed. Both of us are frozen on the spot as the thing half slither, half crawl towards us. And it stops at an arm's distance from us, and I could see its multiple dark, round eyes staring at us, the reflection of the light on each and every single one of them. I'm speechless. I'm not even sure I'm breathing, and Julie's by my side, looking completely terrified and intrigued all at once. The thing's mandibles are soaked in what looks like saliva, but I know better than to trust an insect like that to have no venom. I could feel and hear Julie's heart beating through her palms as her fingernails bury bloody crescents into my arm. But what happens next happens so fast that I'm not even sure if I dreamt it or if it really happened. The beast fell on Julie, mandibles stretching wide to allow her body to fit into its monstrous mouth. And I heard the disgusting sound of the mandibles piercing the skin of her neck, But in a matter of a second, it had half of her body engulfed in its mouth, and I stood there, frozen, unable to think coherently before the grotesque and horrifying display I was forced to bear witness to. And when I came to it, the caterpillar was down to her ankles, and I knew I needed to do something. I barely had the time to hear it spit her bones out, and I jumped as high as I could and climbed its shell. I forced my way out of the tent, and I ran and ran and ran until I passed out, my lungs burning with a fire that couldn't be tamed. And I do not even remember if I made it back to the trail or if I ran home. But when I woke up in my bed the next morning, the first thing I remember is screaming Julie's name until my mother came in and held me. We never found Julie. We never found her remains, her clothes, and we never found those carnival grounds deep in the woods.